Today is January 4th, 2020. My name is Lori Kurtz. Would you please introduce yourself, say your pronouns if you care to, and tell us what you do?
Okay. I'm Natasha Riot. I am a burlesque performer. Also, I do fire performance and Middle Eastern dance in a contemporary version of it. I also produce shows. I make my own costumes and headdresses. And that's creatively what I do.
Excellent. So, what is burlesque?
Burlesque is a lot of things to a lot of people, and to me, it's a form of expression. It's a storytelling sort of thing. The word burlesque is the dictionary defines it as a parody of something, and burlesque shows used to be a 3-part show with comedians and dancing girls and just lots of entertainment acts. And I think burlesque is what we know now and is called broadly neo-burlesque, even with people doing classic acts. It's a lot of empowerment for a lot of factions of people. And it's beautiful and sparkly or weird and subversive or nerdy or anything really that you can put on stage and feel good about.
Yeah. And what kind of, how would you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
It's hard. I do a lot of different styles. I think probably what I'm known best for is strange, nerdlesque, character-driven stuff. I am not really a classic burlesque performer at all. I definitely bring a lot of my dance background into it and will incorporate fire or incorporate some belly dance or incorporate fire performance where I can into the nerdlesque and character work, or just me in a sparkly outfit. But here's some fire.
And in a nutshell, what would be the difference between classic burlesque and neo-burlesque, do you think?
I think classic burlesque would be defined as it definitely has a formula. There's a certain look of the costume, there's what you do from beginning to end, and neo-burlesque takes that formula and goes off in different tangents with it.
So you have several names that you perform under?
Yes.
Can you tell us what those are and how they came to be? Why perform with a different name?
That's a wonderful question. So when I was belly dancing primarily, actually when I started belly dancing, it was also customary to take a stage name. But I never found one that I felt comfortable doing. A lot of people would take on Middle Eastern or Middle Eastern sounding names, and it just never sat right with me. And that's not to say that that's bad or good or whatever. It wasn't for me. So I just didn't ever do that. And by the time I started getting known, it was too late. So I just always belly danced under my given name. And then when I started doing burlesque, I've gone through different names in burlesque just because I didn't at the time figure out what I was doing. A lot of people would say, that they would choose their name because of their persona in burlesque, but because I was doing so much character-driven work and I wasn't pigeonholing myself into, I'm a classic performer, I'm a burlesque performer, I didn't want to have my name describe this one thing. So Natasha Riot's what's sticking. I'm not changing it again, I promise. I get teased a lot about it. And then when I dance in clubs, I have a different name for that, mostly to separate what I do. Cool. That was a long answer to a short question.
It was perfect. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Mountain View, California, and I grew up in Willits, California, which is in Mendocino County, which is northern.
And what brought you to Oregon?
I was living in the Bay Area and performing a lot in the Bay Area, and then the Bay Area changed so much that I wasn't able to afford to live there anymore. So I tried my hand in LA, which was awful. Sorry, LA. But it was mostly because I was still working in the Bay Area and having to commute every week, and it was just didn't work out. And I was touring at the time with a band, and we stopped in Portland for a couple of days, and I just remembered getting off the bus and feeling that this was right. And so after tour, I packed everything up and came to Portland.
Wow, what year was that?
That was 2016, so January 2016. So, yeah.
So in your formative years, what did you do that led you toward performance?
I think always been a performer. My mom put me into gymnastics and dance when I was 3, I think, and did it all. I wish I had stuck with gymnastics now, but I think I fell off the parallel bars. I don't remember this, but this is what I figured out as an adult, because I don't like going upside down or being on parallel or any sort of thing. I think I probably fell off, and I stopped doing gymnastics after that, but did tap, jazz, ballet combo, and then really gravitated towards jazz dance, and then did jazz all through my childhood into high school, and then after high school I started belly dancing and did West African dance and flamenco, and then found my way to modern dance and hip hop, and then so I've dabbled in all of the not everything, but in enough.
And then what formal education or training have you had?
When I was a kid, I was in a dance school, and then I would do classes at the community college and work with that. Willits is a really small town with not a lot of resources, so there were 2 teachers that I really worked with who also taught the college, and then I would work with visiting teachers. I worked at and took classes at a dance school in Ukiah, California called SPACE, the School for Performing Arts and Cultural Education, and so we would always have visiting teachers come in from the Bay Area and create choreographies for us, so we would be challenged and as teachers and as students, which was wonderful. And then I would travel to the Bay Area and take classes and workshops from people where I could, and then so I never like went to school for dance, but I had lots of different outlets for it. So,
yeah. In those formative years, was there anyone who was an influence or an inspiration to you?
I looked over these questions before, and I was like, and then it was solid gold. It was solid gold when I was a kid, and I wanted to be a solid gold dancer so bad, and I would watch the show, and I would imitate the dancers, and my mom was mortified. I was like, someday I'm going to be a solid gold dancer. She's like, yeah, look at me now, Mom.
So, yes. What year and how did you get started in burlesque?
So I don't even know if it was on my radar before, I want to say 2003. And I saw the Yard Dogs Roadshow, and it blew my mind. And they were so fantastic, and they had performance in with this fun music. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And that prompted me to be like, what are these girls doing? What is I just wanted to know more. And at that time I didn't have the internet. I had it for like an hour a week. And so I just bought all the books I could and researched and just pursued how can I know more about this? So, and then in that being like, oh, it's kind of what I'm already doing a little bit. I was doing more vaudeville stuff. And so it was, even though, back in the early turn of the century, you never mixed vaudeville or burlesque. Now it's different, where a burlesque show, you can see a variety of performances. I really attribute it to the Yard Dogs, to like opening my eyes to that sort of wonderful world. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. And so, keying off of that and your other training, how did you develop your career?
Let's see. So I owned a dance school in 2004, 2005, still in Mendocino County. And so I was doing that a lot, traveling to the Bay Area to take classes so I could bring back new and fresh material. And then I got hired for a festival in West Virginia, of all places, and they said, "Can you do 45 minutes?" And I was like, sure, let's see if this, okay. So I had to create a 45-minute act that would keep people interested, which is incredibly hard. It's hard to keep people interested in a 10-minute belly dance act in a restaurant, so much less a 45-minute act on a stage at a music festival. So that really, I was pushed into like, okay, here you go. Take all your theater training, take all your dance training, and put it together, which then in itself became a burlesque, because I had to throw comedy in, I had to throw different characters in, I had to, so it was everything I could possibly do, all of my dance training into this one act. And I ended up taking that to different places, and then, of course, whittling it down to like a 10-minute act, which was about as far as I could whittle it down into, wherever I could do that. And so that kind of jump-started me into people being like, oh, well, why don't you take this here and take this here? I got hired for parties and different things. And then I found the Hubba Hubba Review in San Francisco, kind of by accident, because I knew another producer who was a friend of mine who was like, come and be in my show. She happened to be sick on that day. So Jim from the Hubba Hubba Review was emceeing that show, saw my act and was like, we need you for Hubba. And then the rest is history. I still work for Hubba Hubba Review. I do their online stage management. Whenever I'm in San Francisco, I perform with them. They're definitely my burlesque family, and always will be. I'm just like, you cry. Jim is amazing. He's really, and he creates this wonderful space for so many different performers in the Bay Area, and he really is one of, Hubba was voted top 10 burlesque show in the world, and he really deserves that accolade. Yeah. So.
And there have been a lot of what's considered burlesque royalty to come out of that Hubba.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sparkly Devil. She started in Detroit, but when she moved to the Bay Area, I remember the first time I met her, I was in a burlesque cheerleading squad called the Cocktees. So actually, I can't believe I forgot about the Cocktees. I joined them when I was still living in Willits. I answered an ad and went and auditioned for them. And so we were cheerleaders, and we had a uniform. I remember one time I called it a costume, and they were like, it is not a costume, it is a uniform. I was like, I'm sorry, yes. And we each had our own characters, and we did cheers. We never stripped. We just did really naughty cheers. So I met Sparkly Devil at one of our Cocktees acts, and she was a force of nature. Like, who is this woman? And then when she started in Hubba, I was just like, yeah, she's family. She's wonderful. And Jim, I just performed there a couple of weeks ago, and I got off stage with one of my signature acts, which is Space Babe, which is just, I come out in a space helmet and a space suit, and basically Space Babe isn't very bright, so she can take off her clothes, but she can't take off her helmet because she'll die. So, and being kind of a bumbly character, a lot of things can go wrong, or a lot of things can go right. And I had fixed my costume and didn't test it out. So I was having a really extremely hard time getting out of my costume, which then led to, it lent to the act. And it just made it funnier because all of the things that I was actually trying to do turned into slapstick when it wasn't working out, and it just kept going and going and going. And I get off stage and Jim says, that was the essence of old school Hubba Hubba Review. And he said, Sparkly Devil's looking down on you right now and is so proud of you. And I went, you're gonna make me cry, Jim. So I just was like, yeah, Hubba is a huge part of my burlesque world and night of quitting. So yeah.
What do you do outside of performing burlesque?
I bartend, and I also perform at I guess it's not outside of burlesque, but I perform at a burlesque club called the Kit Kat Club here in Portland. It's interesting. Someone just asked me this question, and I went, I think most of my life really revolves around performance, because bartending is really the only thing that I do for many that's not tied into performance. But then it's another performance all in itself. Yeah, and I'm really happy that I've created a life where it's mostly performance based, and pat myself on the back.
Exactly. So do you participate in the burlesque festival circuit?
To a very small extent, yes. Yeah, it's a great way to get known, but it can become very expensive. So I kind of allot what I'm going to apply for every year, just so I don't put too much out without getting anything back. So
what's that process like? Can you just sort of paint a picture of how it works, of applying, and how does the travel work? And just give us a picture of that.
Okay. Yeah, and what I meant by like getting anything back, that might have sounded dire. And that's I choose to do it because I love it. So that is what I get back. It's just a financial part for me. So the application process, there's generally a nominal application fee, and depending on the festival, you can submit I've had festivals that will let you submit 3 acts. So 1 to 3 acts. You have to have a fairly good video. A lot of places are like, oh, you can film in your living room if you want. I think it's better to probably send in your best work on a stage. So the stage lights make your costume look like you want it to look. And then, the description of your act, and that's very important too, because if you just write down, I take my clothes off, I wear sparkly, no one's, they might not even look at your video. Then unless you're a headliner, you generally have to pay for travel. Some festivals do offer a stipend, which is wonderful, but generally not enough to cover your travel. And also then some festivals will either help you find lodging or will pay for your lodging. But festivals are wonderful. You get to meet people from all over the country and all over the world and see what's going on outside of your bubble. And it's really exciting. I participated in the Australian Burlesque Fest, and it was really fun to see what the Australians were doing as far as burlesque goes. And I'm going to the UK in February, and to a variety and burlesque festival, which I'm super excited about. And I'm really, I haven't been accepted into any European festivals until this one, and I feel like Europe has a very high standard as far as they're very classic, or like just diverting from classic, and so they probably look at me and go, what are you doing, weirdo? So when I got accepted into this festival, I was like, cool, I made it.
That's great. So the stereotype of burlesque from olden days and possibly today is of male producers and exploited female performers. What's the burlesque community like in Portland?
I have not experienced that in Portland, which I'm super grateful about. I'm not sure how one of our producers presents themselves. They are gender fluid, and then another one definitely is a male. And I have never had any problems with either of them. I've never heard any sort of complaints about them at all. I think Portland is generally a really great, open, loving space. So, yeah, very inclusive.
Yeah.
And also it's small enough to where people were acting out in a way that was not favorable. They would be quickly called out on it, so...
Can you tell just a little bit about all the places there are to perform in Portland? Just all those places that you perform.
There are so many places. Dante's is one of them, and Dante's hosts Sinferno, which is the longest running variety show on the West Coast. The Lovecraft Bar is where I do my show, and I actually took over from Mad Marquis last year. The Crush Bar does performances almost 7 days a week. Those are the three that come to mind. The Jacqueline and Review, which is underneath a pool hall that is in a building from the 1920s, which is wonderful. So it's a jazz club. And then every Saturday there's a burlesque show after the jazz show. I'm missing so many other places. There's so many bars or clubs that host burlesque. There's a tiny little place called the Big Legrowski that the Little Lioness produces at. And it's tiny, and there's a tiny little space for a stage, but it's great because there's people there. And Local Lounge is a queer friendly space as is Crush. Yeah, those are the ones off the top of my head, but there's, probably at least a dozen more, if not more than that. So.
And then Portland has some festivals and competitions.
Yes.
The Oregon Burlesque Festival.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience with that.
I've won 2 titles with the Oregon Burlesque Festival. The first year, I think it was 2016, the year I moved here, I won the Keeping It Weird Award for my Master Shake and Carl act from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And the next year, I won Queen of the Roses with my epic fire act that was based on an Erte painting. This year, I was one of the judges for the competition. Last year, actually, I was supposed to crown the next Queen of the Roses, but I had to leave because I was hired in Texas to do another performance. So the Oregon Burlesque Festival is wonderful. They've now moved it to the Alberta Rose Theater, which is a beautiful and historic building theater in Portland. There's also the Metalesque Fest, which is a 3-day festival to all metal music, which is super fun if you're into that sort of thing. What other? I mean, there's the Miss Exotic Oregon competition, which is hosted by Exotic Magazine. That happens every November. There's lots of little, more strip club industry competitions that generally, I want to say, don't necessarily include burlesque. Some performers do. The Miss Exotic Oregon is definitely more performance-based. There's the Pole Erotica competitions, which is all pole artist-based, which is amazing. It's mind-blowing. So, yeah, lots of opportunity.
Well, it's so rich here, you probably don't need to travel too much. So, describe a week in the life of being a creative industry entrepreneur. So, what's your week like? You've already talked about a lot of your performance. the bartending, and then you've alluded to producing and all the things that entails. So just paint us a picture of a week.
Okay. So let's go to a week in the summer where I produce shows 3 times a month, which is insane. So I will shape my days to where I usually work in the evenings. So I will get up and I will start on my production. So I will hire my performers pretty far out, so that is already done with, and I can then just continue on with promoting in different ways. So I have a bunch of community calendars that I post to different sites that will then kind of bot out and post on different calendars for me. But that takes a good hour at the very least to put the info for each show on. So if I'm doing 3 times a month producing, that's at least 3 hours of putting things out because they're different shows. So I can't just copy and paste one for the entire summer. So that takes a lot of time. Thankfully, I have a deal with the Lovecraft Bar where I do my shows, where it's the same deal no matter what show I do. So that's kind of already done and taken care of. I have to organize the performers and make sure that they're promoting on their social media sites. And then that's a challenge in itself because it feels like every month some new rule is coming in with the socials where now I can only invite 50 people to my event, which that's like the capacity. So trying to find creative ways of getting the word out, and so that's another brain space altogether. And so then doing that and then making costumes and rehearsing my new acts for, and then remembering to send my info into other producers and then going to work. So it's a lot of no downtime. So it's funny when people ask me, well, what do you do in your downtime? Like, it's really boring. You don't want to know. I sit at my computer or I watch Drag Race while I'm rhinestoning, or I'm not out like living this fabulous life that is depicted in a movie called Burlesque, which is
awful. So shifting to more artistic aspects, what's your process for creating a new piece of burlesque for yourself?
It varies. So sometimes I'll be inspired by a piece of music. Sometimes I'll be inspired by a specific theme or a costume piece that I just felt compelled to make. It used to be music primarily for me, and that has shifted as the time has gone on. And now sometimes people are like, oh, here's this theme, which I'll be interested in but not have an act. I'll be like, okay, I can create an act for that. So the most recent one was a Nightmare Before Christmas act. Actually, someone was just like, we want you to be in the show. I'm like, I have nothing like that. They're like, okay, but we still want you to be in the show. I'm like, So, I have someone who I kind of bounce ideas off and who will give me ideas too. So that's nice to have someone in my life, because sometimes I'm just so burnt out. Like, I don't know. I also, before that, created an act based off the movie Demons because it was a Dario Argento show. So I was like, oh, okay, so that'll be fun. And just had a really fun time with that one. So, yeah.
So there's a good deal of talk now and education around the topic of cultural appropriation. What are your considerations when you're creating a piece of theater around about what do you consider?
Oh, there's so much to consider. Mostly, is it my story to tell? And I think that's the biggest consideration. I mean, this has been a topic in the belly dance community for years and years. And I mean, the women who introduced it to America and who are prominent figures now, a lot of them first started by watching women that came over from the Middle East that were dancing in nightclubs. There was no codified, like, this is how you do each movement. It was all like, do it. So when they would take classes from these women, it wasn't like, okay, you do a Maya like this. And it wasn't even called a Maya, it was something else. So in that way, like, were they culturally appropriating? Maybe, maybe not, because they were learning from the women who were coming over. Did they take it and do something else with that? Is that cultural appropriation, or is that growth of the dance form? So it's a big topic, and it's a sticky situation, and everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. So with my contemporary fusion dance, where I incorporate belly dance into what I do, I make sure that I don't call it belly dance, because it's far from the traditional styles that I've learned and I've researched and know about. And then I've taken it and made it something different, but I won't call it, oh, well, that's Lebanese dance, because it's not. It's my own creation. So in burlesque, I think it's more the themes that you have to watch out for. So me, as a cis white woman, I'm not going to delve into topics in the queer community or in a Latino community. I'm anything that is not me, it's not my story to tell again. So the one act where I was a little hesitant about, but someone asked me to create it, who is in the queer community, who I trust, that wouldn't ask me to do this if they didn't feel like it was appropriate, was to do a Mortal Kombat act. And so I was like, they wanted me to do the character of Katana. And I said, okay, so I researched it. And Katana is a fictional character that's 10,000 years old. She's a princess. I'm like, okay, well, I'm none of these things. And neither is anybody else. And I think where the conversation could come in is that it's possible that the creators of that video game took some Asian influence and put them in these characters. So I'm still kind of back and forth on that. That act will only be presented in places that is okay. I've gotten it accepted to festivals. So I don't feel like I'm culturally appropriating Asian culture. I'm culturally appropriating a video game character, which is, I don't know if that's valid. But yeah, so it's tricky too, like when I do my Master Shaken Carl act, would someone say that I'm making fun of Carl and people that are represented by Carl? No, because I'm playing Carl. So that's the same thing. I'm playing Katana, but I'm only in a very surface aspect of it because So, yeah. Again, sorry. Long answer to a short question.
It's a complex topic. Yeah. And that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and it's tricky as I don't want to offend. That's definitely never, ever my intention. And I'm very aware. And if I misstep, I want to be told that I'm misstepping so I can change my behavior. I just want to have fun and I want to bring joy to the world, and I don't want to step on toes. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable unless that's my intention by being creepy.
So in Portland, what's been your experience with diversity in burlesque and performance? How do you define diversity? And then what do you see in the Portland community?
I feel like we have a very rich queer culture, and the shows that I'm in, the shows that I produce, I try and pull all aspects. I'll have drag performers, I'll have queer performers, however they want to present in my shows, and try and do it. In my monthly show, every show I want someone who is doing drag, someone who is doing burlesque as it's known. I want someone of culture or color or a different culture in, so it's well-rounded and people can see that we are diverse. And it's so, the thing for me is like, I don't understand why it hasn't always been like that, why it's ever been a conversation, why it bothers me that people have been suppressed in it, and especially in the entertainment industry. It's just like, and I know it exists, and I want to help nurture the growth and the inclusivity of everything, because if you're a good performer, you're a good performer. I don't bring it.
When you tell people what you do, what kind of comments do you get?
I was trying to think about this question and answer it succinctly. I think I have voiced the answer to that question in a way where people are either thrown off guard by it, so they don't really have anything to come back with, or it's like so grandiose. Like I'll say, "Oh, I'm an internationally touring burlesque performer," and they go, "Oh, internationally? Like, oh, what? So what about is this?" So they get interested right away rather than like, "Oh, you're just a stripper," which then I will go and be like, "Oh, just a stripper? Okay, let's talk about this," because there is a stereotype that needs to be shut down right now, and so and I've had a little bit of backlash from my family who doesn't understand burlesque, which is totally fine. It's fine. One of the comments I got was like, "Well, why are you going so much into burlesque? You're such a good dancer." And I'm like, "Well, that's what I'm doing on stage. I'm just like, okay, yeah, for instance, when I'm Carl, I'm not like getting very elegant because that's not the character. But I'm making people laugh and they can relate to me because they've either seen the show or the character's so strange that they're like, this is cool. Or not, or they think it's disgusting, and that's fine too." My conservative family back east was I toured to the New York Nerd Burlesque Festival with Shake and Carl, and I saw them later and they're like, so you take off your clothes on stage? And I was like, no, I switch characters on stage. But yeah, Carl strips. But then I'm in Carl's suit. So yes and no. But so when people come at me and in a sort of closed-minded area, and I could tell that they're not ready to learn about it, it's just kind of meeting them where they're at. So like, sure, I'm stripping, but I'm stripping into another character. So in that way, the stripping that you're thinking about isn't this. But it is. So
People in burlesque say that it empowers them. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. I think that creating an act is empowering. I think getting on stage just in general is empowering, and seeing people grow from being like, I would never go on stage, to a few years later where they're just owning everything about themselves and filling the stage with their essence is just so beautiful to see. And even if you don't even want to get on stage, seeing or feeling that it's okay to expose your body. It's okay to express yourself through dance. That's just empowering in itself. Yeah.
And then I've heard people talk about how burlesque can be a force for social change. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like, it ties into the empowerment thing. I think the more that we become empowered, the more our eyes are opened to what's going on around us. And then also tying into the cultural appropriation thing, you start being aware of what's appropriate and what's not, and what's boundary pushing and what's offensive. And so in that way, that social change comes out too, of like, wait a second, that makes me uncomfortable. I'm saying it's making other people uncomfortable. And it's not because it's a creepy sort of thing that I'm not familiar with. It's because you're making fun of something. And so yes, burlesque means it's a parody of something, but are you parodying it in a negative, awful fashion? Or are you parodying it because it's a joke? So, and that again opens up a whole other can of worms. People just be nice to each other. And then that in itself will inspire change in everybody. Just meeting people where they're at, and even the most awful conservative person has a story to tell. And even though we don't agree with it, as long as they're not harming people. And if they're racist and misogynist and awful, it's hard. Like, I used to be really, I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent. I really want them to change their mind and open their mind to like this utopian vision that I want everybody to live in. But sometimes you can't, and it's disheartening. But those are the people that aren't going to come to burlesque shows anyways. So you can only reach who you can reach. And I think that's my point. It's like, if we can, it's the old saying of change starts in yourself. So if you can change you, inspire people to change, and then hopefully they can inspire and inspire and inspire. We can't change everyone, but we can maybe change a lot of people's opinions and ideas about other people. So.
Well, I think you just sort of answered the next question, but I'll do it anyway. What are the challenges facing burlesque today, do you think?
I think burlesque is a lot more accepted than it has been in the past. It's I have no qualms about telling people that I do burlesque. And this kind of goes back to the name thing. When I was starting burlesque and I was doing Middle Eastern dance too, one of the reasons that not only that I needed to take a different name just because that's what I did in burlesque, but I needed to separate my legal name from my burlesque name so that people, the old guard in the belly dance community, wouldn't look down upon me because I was doing this kind of lewd thing. And this was early 2000s. So I feel like, in the years since then, it's been a lot since fusion belly dance and now contemporary fusion dance has evolved in such a way that it's become its own art form, that it is looked more favorably upon. So now I don't have any qualms with telling, my mentors in belly dance, like, oh yeah, I do burlesque. Because I feel like they'd be like, cool, okay. So it's definitely changing. It's definitely changing. It's becoming more accepted, which is great. But then, I live on the West Coast. I don't know what it's like in the Midwest. I don't know what it's like in the South. I've done festivals in the South and on the East Coast, but in general, I don't know what the scenes are like or what the population thinks about it. So, yeah.
And then final question, what do you wish the general public would understand about burlesque?
That it's an art form. It really is, and that, this has been a topic of conversation within the burlesque community, and I think outside of the burlesque community too, is that the division between strippers and burlesque, and yeah, what is that division? And in Portland, it's very unique because there's so many strip clubs that we boast the most strip clubs per capita of anywhere else in the country. So each club has to be unique for patrons to want to go there. So, I work at a burlesque club, so we have feature sets every night of different themes. On the weekends, it's run like an old school show club where there's 2 shows a night. So in that way, it's like the stereotypical stripping and burlesque meet. I guess the difference would be stripping doesn't necessarily have a storyline where burlesque does. In many places you have to keep your pasties and panties on for burlesque, but in some places you have to keep your panties on and or pasties and stripping too. So it really is, they're sisters. They're not twins, but they're definitely sisters, and one borrows from the other constantly. And when I wasn't as confident about my body as I was now, I was very reticent to be like, oh yeah, I guess I am a stripper, because I am removing items of clothes, even if it is changing into another character. But it's okay. It's all right. It's fine. Everybody has a body. And the people that are showing them yours are really, really bold. So there shouldn't be the stigma about it. But that's another long conversation. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.